And we are all righty. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to All About Startups with myself and Shameka Burrell of the Burrell Enterprise. I am so excited about the information we'll be presenting to you today, dealing with accounting, business development, startups, bookkeeping. And so let's get ready. I'm going to start out dealing with pointers and tips for startups. And I will be sharing my screen for my PowerPoint. Let me share real quick. Alrighty, my name is Ty Hardin, and I am with Ichthus Communication Network again Consulting. I'm going to be giving some pointers and some tips about startups. So you want to start your own business. Count and cut the costs. Do you have a viable business? You can do it yourself on most of the steps in establishing your own business. There's no need to have a third party coaxing you into high startup costs. There's a roadmap to startup businesses. First of all, starting with the brand, have your brand, and then develop a business plan, whether it be your brand name, business idea, invention, whatever the case may be. Start with your brand and then deal with your business plan. The business entity, make sure you choose the right business entity. Further down in the presentation, there will be more discussion about business entities, but I always suggest that you choose your right business entity. And also the Secretary of State registration, EIN, and an EIN through the IRS. So the startup roadmap is make sure you have your brand and your business plan. Make sure you choose the right business entity. Make sure you go through the Secretary of State to register, and make sure you get an EIN so that you can start up your business. Dealing with the Secretary of State, familiarize yourself with your state Secretary of State. Review all regulations, file the right forms and documents, and plan for the Secretary of State fees. When I had mentioned earlier about the counting all the cost and cutting costs and not having to go through a third party, most of the Secretary of States, when you familiarize yourself, I'm in Colorado, when you familiarize yourself with your own state Secretary of State, know what the costs are to do your articles of incorporation. That's where you start. You can also choose an entity, um, and you can do all that through a Secretary of State. So plan for the fees. It's also a yearly cost that you have to maintain when it comes to the Secretary of State. What will you do about money? And so grant writing and research. Everybody loves free money. There's researchers, there's consultants, there's grant writers, there's grant requirements, and even during this time of COVID, there's COVID-19 or in the CARES Act, where there's money available. You can seek out a researcher for grants. You can seek out a consultant like myself that can help you search for grants. And I also am able to do some level of grant writing. Uh, but make sure you always pay attention to the grant requirements. Each grant has different grant requirements. And COVID-19, um, there's certain requirements as well to be able to get that money through the CARES Act. And so that is it for me. If you need to contact me, you can contact me through Facebook, my Facebook page, Ichthus Communication Networking and Consulting, uh, email, either email or phone number. And questions will be taken at the end of the presentation. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Shameka Burrell from the Burrell Enterprise LLC, who does accounting, bookkeeping. She is the Chief Financial Officer, tax preparation, and she just recently took on notary. And so let me pass it on to her and allow her to present.
Thank you so much.
You are good to go.
Okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay. So one, thanks for doing this, Ty. I think it's a great opportunity for startup business. We know that we have so many. This is such a great opportunity, let's just say that first, to actually turn your hobby into a business or a side business, or however you want to say this, because we also know that we cannot always depend on our 9 to 5. So, I believe that God has graced us through this time for us to also go back to ownership. So, thank you again for putting this together. And you got to work with me here for a moment. I know math, but PowerPoints is a little different for me, but we're gonna work it out. Again, Ty introduced me. My name is Shameka Burrell. I am the managing accountant and owner of the Burrell Enterprise here in Atlanta, Georgia, but we actually do everything virtually. Um, and so a little about me, I hold a degree in accounting. I have worked as a CFO, as an accountant, as a tax person over 8 years for private corporations, nonprofits, corporations as well, organizations as well. I have a passion for nonprofit organizations as well as small business and startups to help them continue to tell their story through through financial record keeping and tax service, because when we start off with any entrepreneur, you understand that the vision comes first, but then money is the next, just like Ty explained, money is the next thing that we need to worry about. So here I just have a few accounting pointers or accounting strategies and tips for you all. And so one, Ty went over, so I'm going to just brief by that part, but choosing your proper business entity, common business mistakes, accounting softwares, payrolls, do's and don'ts, and tax strategy for small business owners. This is one of the biggest questions I get is, how can I save money on my business? And I'm just going to give a few pointers here. So let's go here. So one of the biggest things that I want to tell you about choosing your appropriate business entity. These are the five entities that they are. That's different between nonprofit and for-profit, but these are the entities within these within the for-profit. And you have to make sure that you clearly define your entity. By defining your entity is one to tell you on the accounting side, how are you going to set up what you do and how you want your business to go. With LLC corporation partnership and S corp, just remember, if you decide to set up that way, that remember that you need to have a separate bank account. Uh, and so when you're choosing your entity, there's some common mistakes to avoid. I'm sorry, choosing your business, there's some common mistakes to avoid. One, I say not starting a business with an entity. Even if you have an idea, start it as a sole proprietor. And then you can always move to your next entity. You don't have to stay locked into that one entity. So one of the biggest common mistakes is not starting a business, not like Ty said, that going to the Secretary of State, not choosing the correct entity. I have came to find or have consulted many clients that when it was tax time, they set their entity up as a sole proprietor, but wanted to file as an LLC on a Schedule C, and you cannot do that. So there's some tax consequences if your business is not filed correctly or not set up correctly. One of the biggest thing I have seen, even on the accounting side, especially we all know there's we can agree about a lot of things, but there's one thing that one thing that we cannot agree once you mess up my money. So I tell a lot of my business clients to make sure if you are in a partnership, you have a partnership agreement starting from the beginning. A lot of times they get into business and you don't know who's handling which part or how many shares does this person have of the company. And believe it or not, it does make a difference on tax season, and also make a difference when you're going to the bank. And another common mistake that I see is not having a separate business bank account. If you are LLC or one of the other ones that I have mentioned besides a sole proprietor, you need a separate bank account. When you go into the bank, for a loan, some of these grants, even though you might have filed your entity in 2019, but you didn't get a bank account, a business bank account, until 2020, most banks would not consider you as a business until you have a business number, a business bank account. And that's why it's so important, as Ty said, that you need to make sure you have an EIN number so you can get business account. You don't want to mix personal and business, because also you'll find out that's a troublesome when it comes to the IRS. They like to see things differently. So that's why if you choose a sole proprietor versus a LLC, you need to realize that you have to have a different business account. And one of the complicated things for business owners, and not always so complicated, I maybe say time consuming, is record keeping, because your job is to run the vision. And so record keeping sometimes come last. But I want to tell you that this is one of the most important things we can see here by COVID, by grants, that a lot of people, and especially in nonprofit looking for grants or just a startup business and trying to get the CARE Act, there's no record keeping. So I suggest that there are many records accounting softwares that you can use that allows you to streamline your accounting. One thing I tell my clients is the reason why, just not to streamline your client, just say something happens to you. To be realistic, we're dealing with COVID and you might have to take off a few days. That allows somebody to pick up where you left off. Many times we have spreadsheets and different stuff that we got to wait for you to email. But if you have a cloud-based system, you are able to hand that off to somebody. Remember, bookkeeping, what it does is tell your financial story. So if your financial story is in a shoebox, it's kind of hard to tell that you are able, how you've been maintaining over the years. Also, maintaining and organizing your receipt. As I mentioned about the shoebox concept, that I had to get one of my clients out for the shoebox concept because one, the IRS don't really care about your receipts. They actually care how you itemize your receipt. So if you are let's just say, if you are a teacher and you buy chalk, you buy something else, you buy this, they want to know that you spent, $100 and some on supplies. They don't care what those supplies was. They're not going to go through individual receipts. But what they do is like, okay, so this is how you itemize. You spent 100 on supplies, you spent 100 on this. One of the great reasons I also know this is when it's time for what we call budget and forecasting. When you start a business or you're a small business owner, budget and forecasting is one of the biggest things that you can do, because it tells you where you're at and where you're trying to go. Just put it simple, write the vision, make it plain. But on the accounting side, so you start in here, but I need to get to B. So one thing organizing your receipts is it will show you how to scale your business. And when you scale your business, you'll know how to move forward or go back. One of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs does is not hire themselves first. And really the reason why is because you are maintaining your books. Sometimes like you maintaining your home. So you pay your bills first and then you pay yourself last. But most entrepreneurs burn out because none of the money is coming to them. Even if you start out not paying yourself, there should be some kind of system or record. But like, I spent $4,000 on supplies. I could have spent $2,000 on supplies and spent $2,000 more of paying myself. So this is why it's so important to not just maintain your receipt, but organize your receipts, so you know where your money is going. That's how you can scale your business. That's how you can tell where it's going. Keep up an update monthly statement. The monthly statement consists of profits and expenses, and then what you have left over. I'm sorry, revenue and expenses, and then the profits that you have left over. That's how you really know whether your business is moving. And also, it's easy to apply for loans and grants. Some grants are time sensitive. Some grants we learned when the EIDL loan came out, of the PPP loan come out. At first it was time sensitive, that you had so much time to get all this information in, or you go back into the queue, or you go back into. So what happens with the CARE grants that Ty was mentioning is that a bank, you can put it in on Tuesday, not have all of your information. And then so now you got to search your information. Well, what happened? You don't get to jump back into line. You go back to the end of the line. They start with the companies that has their information first. So record keeping is such a big part of, should be a big part of your company, especially in foundation work, because you definitely need to learn how to continue to keep your records. Okay, and then I want to talk to small business startups that has payroll do's and don'ts. One of my firm, one thing my firm does handle is payroll. Some biggest misconception in payroll, and also some light human resources. And one is misclassifying employees, not paying payroll related taxes. If you have a W-2 employee, you're responsible with paying payroll taxes. So just think, even if you pay an employee in cash, you need to keep some kind of record, because you're responsible for paying taxes. Sometimes we think if we just give employees cash that we don't have to keep proper record keeping. That's not true. If you are paying a employee and not checks or direct deposit, and you paying them a cash sum, not as a 1099, but as a W-2 employee. You can pay W-2 employees in cash, but you still have to keep proper record keeping, and you still have to report that to the IRS. Another mistake that I see in Payroll is reconciling payroll with your accounting. We just sometimes pay out the expense because we have the software, but we never reconcile it with our account. So you're missing a part of your expense record because payroll is one of them. And we learned that now with the PPP loan, that was one of the biggest things they wanted to know. How many people are you paying out and what are you paying? So it's important to keep your payroll records. Not correctly identifying employees or payroll, tax, HR, or compliance, meaning that sometimes because we are a small business owner or startup, or we're not correctly identifying them as full-times, part-times, 1099s, W-2s, interns. You have to correctly identify who you're hiring. And then tax strategies and tips for startups. One of the biggest questions is how can I save money? There's two things I want to mention about tax strategies, tips. Good things, bad things. Sometimes business owners just want to know how much they can save. But I want to tell you that especially solopreneurs that is not, or single LLCs that is drawing for this, and you have to use your business as income, even though the strategy is also to write off everything. That's the strategy. But let me just warn you, if you are a business owner and you are looking for, just say, a home or any kind of, car, home, another type of personal loan or something. A lot of accountants don't say this, but I will, that you can get messed up by the IRS by taking off everything in taxes, meaning that if your revenue is $50,000 and you wrote off 45 of those $1,000, really your profit is only $5,000. So when you go to buy a home, you kind of messed up at the end of the year because they're looking at that bottom number. They're looking at what was your profit. So even though in reality, you might have made $50,000, but you just showed on your taxes that you only made $5,000 because your expenses was higher than your revenue. So always keep that in mind. We had a couple of clients that want to write off everything, but then couldn't get approved. Well, actually, they went to somebody else, and then when it came to us, I had to tell them why they could not get approved for a house. Is because when I had to double check their taxes, they wrote off everything. So it did not look like they made any money. So you want to be very careful of doing that. But if you need some strategies and you need to get your tax debt down for business owners with small children, spouse, you can take advantage of tax deductions. You can actually hire your child to do work. One of the great benefits of doing this, as a side note, is that if you hire your child for $900, just say a month, and you put it in a direct deposit, well, you get a tax advantage. You get a tax credit for hiring your children. Two, your child don't get taxes taken out of their taxes. Out of their paycheck. But one of the great things about it is just say $900 is too, it's just a salary you're going to pay them. You can put $300 to the side for your child, and you can still pay your bills off that other amount, the other $600. So, there's ways to get around that. I like to throw that into parents who have small children, but it has to be a reasonable salary and a real job. But that's another way that you can get around that is, hey, I can't afford to pay them $900 because it doesn't benefit me. But if you learn how to work the rules, you just pay them once you get to that direct deposit. I'm really paying you $300. I'm gonna take the other amount, and then I'm gonna pay the bills. You paid your bills, you got a tax advantage, and your child still made money. That's just a side note. Think about a retirement plan, a 401k. These are big around tax times that you can take advantage of. If you're self-employed and you're on the marketplace or anywhere that you are paying for health insurance, keep all of those receipts, keep all of those payments, because that is something that you can also benefit from. the home deduction, whether you are physical, have a physical home office or a place in your home besides your regular place of work that requires you to be, you can still take that as a deduction. So just say you're a lawyer, but you have a office, a brick and mortar, you can still use that, but you can still take the home advantage, because if you spend more than 50% now at home, you can use that area. Interest charges from credit cards and bank loans. If you currently have like a bank loan or interest credit card, you can use those interest fees as tax deduction. So there's many more tax deductions that you can take. But you will have to actually sign up for a coaching call or a financial consultant. But here are some of the information that I went over, plus these are services that we provide, startup budgeting and financial consulting. One of the great things I love to do is help solopreneurs, people that are barber, hairstylists. If you're running your own company, you think you can't afford a bookkeeper. We do work with you, virtual CFO services, if you need day-to-day help running your business or monthly help with statements and financials and reading them. We also have a virtual bookkeeping services that we do offer, just doing just regular bookkeeping. I do consulting in accounting, tax preparation, and compliance. Compliance is so much because we have to understand that, especially when we're taking in these PPP loans and all these, you want to make sure that you are in compliance, because it looks good when it hits your bank account, but when the next year come around, especially under this administration, nothing is free. That you might want to make sure that everything you're doing is in compliance with the PPP loan or the CARE Act loan or those COVID-19 loans that is going around. They don't mind giving it to you, but they also don't mind charging you and harassing you to get it back. And then last, how can you contact me? This is my website at the Burrell Enterprise, the email at admin@Burrell Enterprise, social media, the Burrell Enterprise on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Shameka, the CFO on Twitter. That's my phone number there to the office. And then if you like to just opt in for, I send out starting the 15th, we revamping our system. And so we'll be sending out newsletter tips and different things for startups, nonprofit and small business owners. You can go ahead and text START to 77948 to subscribe. And also, if you subscribe between now and this weekend, I will actually set up a free strategy meeting, not the normal 15-minute meeting that I have, but we will actually set up a strategy meeting to help you either get your business off the ground or your accounting system into where it needs to be. But you need to text START to 77948. Thank you. And I send it back to Ty.
This has been such a blessing. It's been such a blessing today. I'm excited. Those of you that want to start up a small business, you can either contact her or I. We're going to open up questions. So anybody that has questions on Facebook Live, we can go ahead and see about answering those questions for either Ms. Shameka or myself. When it comes to business startup, business development, and on her part dealing with taxes, financial side, proper bookkeeping for your business. So they're going to give it just a few minutes and see if any questions come in. I'm looking in the comments. Let us know. Those of you that will see this at a later time as well, you can reach out to us on Facebook or the other social media avenues as well, as mentioned. So yes. I'll give it about another couple of minutes.
Okay.
You can see the comments as well, right?
No. I can go to the page though.
Okay. like there's any questions. So we thank everybody for viewing, share, like, share. And it was a pleasure presenting this information and working with Miss Shameka as well of the Burrell's Enterprise. Bless God. Have an awesome day, everyone.